My name is Kris Gethin, and what I aim to bring to you is inspiration, motivation from clients, everything that will allow you to evolve as a human being. Hello, everybody. This is Kris Gethin, and welcome to another episode of the Kris Gethin podcast. Today is going to be a very special episode. My client on the other end here, if you're watching this on YouTube, you can see Kris on the other end, has overcome some amazing challenges that I can only explain as being very inspiring, absolutely inspiring, not just to me, but all of you listeners and viewers watching this right now. So Kris Shook has been a client for a while, followed my programs for a while, but he came up against some challenges whilst getting ready for a bodybuilding show. But I'm not going to go into too much detail about that now, because I want it to come from Kris's mouth to explain where he was, what sort of shape that he got out of, and what did he do to actually lose over 50 pounds to see like the ball of health that I can see right now on the other end of the screen here. So Kris, thank you very much for coming onto the show, sir.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
So tell us a little bit about your background so people have a little bit of an understanding of what you were doing specifically, as you got some pretty bad news that kind of shook your world. But if anything, it gave you the tipping point to really make a complete 360 in your life.
Absolutely. So I'll go back just really, really far back. So I grew up in the days of Arnold Schwarzenegger and Lou Ferrigno and that kind of stuff. So at a very young age, maybe sixth grade, watching Conan O'Brien really turned me on to, seeing, Arnold and learning more and getting into the health and fitness and always being competitive in sports. Fast forward to I want to say 2012ish, 2011, maybe right around there. I saw one of your series on bodybuilding.com, which really turned me on to the 12-week series that you put on, which I found phenomenal to be able to actually follow somebody day to day through that 12-week period. And then it inspired me to do something that I've always wanted to do. I've always wanted to compete. I wanted to compete as a bodybuilder, again, going back to the Arnold Schwarzenegger days, right? And but then men's physique really started to take off back then. And I felt like just being someone who's 6'3" and for me, I felt like not being able to add the mass to the legs, right? I always had been challenging adding, making the leg development. So I felt the men's physique was kind of, the area that I wanted to go down, right? That was the path that I wanted to go down. It was my calling. And so as I was preparing for men's physique in 2012, I just noticed, I noticed something wasn't quite right, but I really couldn't figure it out because I wasn't feeling sick, right? But as 2012 continued to progress and towards the end of the year, and as I was continually, losing some weight, and then we started to transition into, and purposely losing weight, mind you, caloric deficiency, going through the cardio. And as we transitioned into 2013, I hit my 12-week prep at that point, and we really started kicking in. And at this point, again, I'm noticing things that are not right. And let's back up just a little bit, because it was probably, I want to say, the summer of, or spring or summer, it was spring of 2012. I did go and see my physician. I saw my family doctor, and I said, something's not right. I've got these swollen lymph nodes, but I don't feel sick, right? But these lymph nodes have been hanging around for a little bit. And I don't understand why. And it's like, well, it's completely normal. And I said, hey, listen, I'm a little bit of a hypochondriac. Can you just do some blood work? Let's do some blood work so that I can feel good about it. We did blood work. A week later, calls me, says, hey, results are fine, completely normal. Blood work's fine. So I go about my merry way. And a few months later in 2012, I want to say maybe around September of 2012, same thing, not going away, right? Again, I do not feel sick whatsoever, but my lymph nodes will not, the swelling will not go down. And at this point, I'm noticing them in more places, like in my clavicle area, in the armpit area, in the neck. And again, I go back to see my doctor, and I said, listen, this is not going away. And he felt the lymph nodes and said, hey, listen, they're normal. And it's just something's happening to you. And I said, great, can we do blood work again? He says, yeah. So a week later, get a phone call. Blood work's normal. Don't worry about it. So I continue going on feeling safe because I was informed that I was fine. And again, now fast forward in the beginning of 2013, I'm really trimming down, right? All my subcutaneous fat's going away. And I'm like, wait a minute, why are these lymph nodes like, I mean, I can see them, I mean, all through my neck. I can see them in my lower abdominal area, the growing area. And people are like, hey, you should get that checked out. And I'm like, I'm fine. My doctor says I'm fine, right? And I just kept thinking maybe it's the public water I was drinking, or maybe it was the new cologne I got that I'm having an allergic reaction to. So I'm more joking about it, telling people that it's nothing, because I had faith that that I was seeking, I was going out. Where most people are afraid when something happens, they don't go and get checked right before it's too late. I was actually going and getting checked. I was being very persistent about wanting to find out what was wrong, but at the exact same time, never felt sick. So we get into about February of 2013, maybe kind of pushing more towards March, because I was preparing for my show. I was preparing for the Vancouver, All Natural Vancouver, that's down in Vancouver, Washington. And I am probably at this point at least a couple of weeks, it was about a couple of weeks away. And I saw my doctor for the third time. And I said, I called, and they said he was on vacation. He'll be back in a week. I said, great. Can I come in and get the blood work done so that when he gets back and I see him, that he'll have the blood work ready to go? Show up, meet with him, fills the lymph nodes, looks at the blood work, and he says, uh-oh. I'm like, what? He's like, I need to get you to a specialist. I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, something's wrong. I'm like, well, that's what I've been coming to see you for. And he goes, I need to get you a specialist right away. So by the time I get to a specialist, I'm a week out from the men's physique. I'm in tip-top shape. I am down around 5-point-something% body fat. I feel completely healthy. Am I a little tired? Yes. And that is mindfully, doing a ton of cardio and being, again, no carbs. Did I lose weight? Yes. And that was done on purpose. But other than that, nothing, no other symptoms whatsoever. No night sweats, no chills, no, unexplained. Well, the unexplainable weight loss was there. No lack of appetite, because trust me, I was very hungry. No dry cough, no symptoms that you would think. And so when I was seeing the specialist, again, I'm joking around with him. I'm in there. I just feel so good. I look good. I feel good. And he's looking at me and he says, Kris, I'm not going to bullshit you. He goes, you've got lymphoma. And I said, what are you talking about? And he goes, you have lymphoma. And I go, no, I don't. Look at me. I'm in perfect health. I'm not even sick. He goes, you have lymphoma. And I said, how do you even know? You haven't even done any other tests on me. He goes, by your blood work and by feeling the lymph nodes, and as many lymph nodes as you have swollen right now, you have lymphoma. And, took a little bit for that to sink in. And
did you know at that stage what lymphoma was? Did you know it was a form of cancer?
Yeah, he said that it was a form of cancer. So it was in denial. I just couldn't. I kept saying, listen, doc, I am not sick. And he's like, you don't have to be sick. There are the group of people that will show the symptoms and the signs, and there's a group of people that will not show any symptoms or signs. And I fell on that. And I got to thinking that, I asked the question, I said, what if I was somebody that was overweight and I couldn't see the lymph nodes in the sense that I could see them, being that slim, that trimmed down. And I had asked my oncologist that a little bit later. My oncologist said I would have been dead in 9 months, at the progression, that how fast it was growing. And so I, at that moment, I asked him, he's like, we have to get you into surgery right away. We need to get a pathology, some work done on you, which is this big scar on the side of my neck. And I said, well, wait a minute. I've got a show I've got to do. I got a show in 1 week. I said, I've worked my ass off, man. I don't think you understand, like the mental, like everything that's involved in all the posing and And he's like, looks at me and he goes, "What's more important, Kris? Is it the show or your life?" And I'm like, "Well, of course, it's my life, man." He goes, "Great, we got to get you in." So sure enough, go in, take out the lymph node. Takes a week to get the pathology reports back. I go to meet with him. And at this point, it sunk in with me where I'm like, okay, I'm going in to see him. He's going to give me the news. I have lymphoma. So I've already accepted the fact, right, walking in to see the doctor, that I was going to be told that. The problem was, as I went to go see him, I made eye contact with his nurse. And his nurse looked at me and she looked straight at the floor. And at that moment, I knew something wasn't right, because she would not make eye contact with me moving forward. And then when they called me back, he came in and he knew my parents. He came in and he would not make eye contact with me. And he looked as white as a ghost. And I'm thinking to myself, this is not going to be good. And finally, he just got to the chase. Said, "Kris, I'm going to tell you," he's like, "Not only do you have lymphoma, but you have two kinds, and one of them doesn't look good at all." And that's that moment that you see in the movies where everything just goes silent and you can see the mouth moving, but you can't hear anything. And I remember walking over to the window and I'm looking outside, and just like everything just went, like I said, it went silent. And it took a little bit for me to process. And then I kind of had to come back around and listen to him and figure out like what the next steps were. And I probably got 2 steps from the outside door before I just lost it, right? I just lost it. Crying, just didn't know what to do, and sat at my car and ended up on Google for probably an hour, which was the wrong thing to do, to go to Google and try and diagnose yourself and figure out what kind of cancer it might be, because the results that you see on Google just they're not favorable by any means. And so it's for me to hear that news, and I was 42 at the time, so this is now going to be going on 10 years here real soon, that I'm going to be reliving. And in fact, we're at about the 10-year mark right now, 9-year mark right now when all this started to happen. And by the time I got to Seattle Cancer Care, which was a matter of a week or so, I can't remember, it was indeed true. I had 2 kinds of lymphoma, the exact same kind, and I was stage 4. It got into my bone marrow. All of my lymph nodes were swollen. Were full of cancer, and to be told you're stage 4 cancer. And at that moment, I said, I just want to hear this one time, and one time only. What is my odds? And they said, you have a 15% chance of survival. And I said, all right, cool. Don't tell me that again. I don't want to hear it. And for me, it became this like this point where I'm like, I'm going to do this. I have a 15% chance. That is a good chance, right? I'm going to do this. And it almost became this, like, I just became very arrogant or very cocky towards cancer. It's almost like, fuck you, I'm going to beat you, and let's go. And I would come into the hospital, and I'd have this cocky, arrogant attitude, like just strut, come into the hospital. I knew I was going to beat it. Did I have my moments? Sure. Right. We're human. There are those moments that I had where it really dawned on me that I'm probably going to die, but I had to eliminate that as quickly as possible and be as positive. And I believe in visualization, and I would do things to where I would visualize myself, having my hair back. I would visualize myself getting back up on stage someday. And this one's a little crazy. When I was receiving chemo, they put me through some pretty hardcore chemo, and they're dumping it, right into right here. It goes up in your jugular vein, dumps right into your heart. One of the chemos they had to give me, the nurses had to wear protective gear. And I would say, why are you wearing protective gear? And they said, well, if we get it on us, it can burn us. And I think, well, you're dumping that right into my heart. What are you talking about? But what I would do is when they would hook me up to chemo, I would close my eyes and I would visualize, and I would change my mindset. And what I would do is I would visualize, even though chemo was this toxic chemical that would kill everything off in your body. But what I would visualize, instead of it being something toxic and negative, I would visualize the chemo being something positive, and I can see it going through my bloodstream, and I can see it just killing off the cancer. So I would visualize the chemo being something positive going into my body as opposed to being something negative. And so I did a lot of journaling, just, did a lot of visualization, just really cocky, arrogant attitude about knowing that I was going to beat it. That was my mindset. Surrounded myself with a lot of positive people, continued to do what I needed to do to stay healthy. I really focused on what was I really putting into my body at the time. And I can elaborate that a little bit later, but I realized that even though I thought I was eating healthy, I wasn't eating healthy. And I came up with this concept or this name called the healthy man disease. And why I called it that is like, here's a lot of us who think that we're eating healthy. We're putting these products into our body, and they're not really healthy products, right? A lot of the foods we're eating are just, they're full of chemicals and pumped full of all these synthetic stuff. And a lot of the supplements that are out there, are not safe by any means, with a lot of the fillers and synthetic stuff in there. And this is one of the main things that I turned me on to you and your products as well, that we could chat about later, is because of that. I did a lot of research. I did a lot of just trying to figure out like what, and I'll never figure out, because with blood cancer, it's environmental. It's not hereditary type thing. It is something in our environment. There's so many toxins in the clothes we wear, or the carpets, or the furniture, or the mattress you sleep on, or the products you put in your hair, whatever it might be. There are so many things that can cause blood cancer, but I'll never figure it out. And the best advice I got from a trainer at the time was, Kris, because I wouldn't even drink out of plastic, right? At one point, I was so scared, right? I was so scared. And my trainer said, Kris, you're living in fear, man. Knock it off. You can't live in fear. He goes, all you can do is control what you can control. Control what you put in your body. Control who you hang out with. Control your stress environment, right? Control, he went on, and I thought that was the best advice I ever got, because it got me over that mind part that I was living. I felt like I needed to live in a bubble. I was so scared of coming back, and I couldn't figure out. But again, going back to just studying and figuring out like what am I putting in my body, right? And so, going through that whole journey was really transformed me in many different ways, mentally, physically. I come out a completely different person today. I'm really focused on what I can do for that community, and I'm working really hard to insert myself into that world, to be an inspirational leader in that community, and to help others that are battling. I joke around all the time. Russell Wilson, I'm sure you're probably familiar, quarterback for the Seattle Seahawks. He goes to Seattle Children's every Tuesday. I think that's great. However, I've tried to do that, but I'm not Russell Wilson, so it's very hard for me to get in the door. But what I am is I'm a cancer survivor, and I can sit down with those people because I've gone to battle with them, right? I know I've been in the same battle they have. And so I'm trying to find ways to be able to volunteer my time, to be able to be an inspiration. I think I was left here for a reason, and the reason I beat it, the reason why I'm here today, is to be an inspiration, to be a leader in that community for those people that are battling, and maybe the people that we all know. And I know this is something you can edit out, and I don't mean to bring this up personally, but I know your father. I don't know your father, but I know your father battled cancer. I remember you sharing a story one time, right? And we all know somebody who either had it, or has it, or either some of that person, right? We're all affected by cancer in one way or another. And I'm just trying to figure out a way to be more of an advocate, to where I can share again my story and talk about a lot of the things that are happening in our world, and how to distress, especially being able to be a full-time father. And not only am I a father, I'm also a grandfather, believe it or not. I'm a grandpa. So
that's unbelievable. Because what are you now? 50?
I'll be 52 here in April.
52. Anybody that is listening to this on the podcast, please go over to my YouTube channel and take a look at Kris here, because you look like you're in your 30s, man. Like,
Yeah.
you do look like a ball of health. And the one thing that I wanted to ask is, you had a couple of blood tests and it kept coming back negative. Was there something there in the blood that they just were missing, or that it only came and reared itself, in your blood, like a year later or some months later after you'd seen, the swollen lymph nodes?
Sure. So that was a question I did ask. When I got to Seattle Cancer Care, I was like, well, why didn't they catch this? And they looked at it and they said, listen, Kris, when you're going to your family doctor, their threshold of, I guess, the window is much bigger, right? And so they're not looking at all the different things. So they have a much bigger window, to where when I went to Seattle Cancer Care and they do blood work, that's their one thing up there. Like the doctors that I had, their one focus is the blood cancer, right? So
they look at more SNPs.
Correct. And they're looking at more blood work and type of blood work, where again, at the family doctor, it's just running a generic blood work, run it through, and hey, you're good. When they looked at it and said, yeah, we could have identified this a little bit sooner, right? And, rightfully so, my mom wanted me to, my mom's like, you need to sue. And I'm like, listen, Mom, I don't need to do that. I have to focus my energy on me right now. I will probably not be here in a year. So in order for me to be here and outlive this, and I have to focus on this. I cannot focus on putting energy into something that's just going to create stress and anxiety and be a cancer feeder. And that's some of the biggest things that my doctors, my oncologists, talk to me about, is constantly is about stress and about sleep. And if you know them and you read my reports that I just so everyone knows, I love accountability, right? So every week I have to be accountable to you, and I struggle with sleep still to this day. And I know a lot of it has to do, I'm a very driven person. I have a very high drive. I can't sit still. I've got to be on the go. I've got to have all these different projects going on in my life. And that's just the way I'm wired. But I now monitor my sleep a lot more, and I wear one of those rings that you told me to buy, and I'm more focused and yeah, exactly. And I'm more focused on figuring out how am I going to, be able to get that, because you have the REM and the deep. And for some reason, I'll get the REM, but I won't get the deep, or I'll get the deep, but I won't get the REM. And I'm trying to okay, how can I get both, right? How can I just maximize this opportunity? Even though I only sleep like 6 hours a night, how can I capitalize on trying to get that deepest sleep possible? Because it never really hit me how important it was. The doctors kept telling me over and over and over, Kris, you have to get your sleep. You have to get your sleep. Until I started listening to you more about the biohacking and those types of things, that I started really looking into it more and realizing, man, I really need to get this deep sleep. I didn't realize the benefit and the healing powers that it has, right? So
yeah, it's funny. People will always look to, let's say, just from a physical aspect or a performance result, they'll always look to a pre-workout or look to carb loading in the morning, as opposed to their recovery. And your recovery dictates your performance, whether that be from a mental health or performance base. So you don't recover, you're not going to perform, and you're not going to be healthy. You're not going to have the immunity bolstered as you possibly could do if you don't recover. And sleep is obviously the main portion of that. So I think it's great that you're trying to help people and create a little bit more of an understanding and awareness about this cause, because as you so rightfully said, had you not been in incredible shape, somebody could be going on, if they're overweight, they're obese, and then just not going to know because you felt absolutely fine. So just, we don't have to spend too much time on this. Would you suggest then people go to a specialist to get their blood work done? And can they do that without getting a referral from a doctor? Because if a general practitioner is doing a blood work and going, yeah, you're okay, what does somebody do?
Yeah, I think something I talk to a lot of people about is that, your intuition is so powerful. And if we know our bodies better than, and so if you feel like something's wrong, even though you don't feel sick, if you feel like something is wrong, it just doesn't feel right, and you're not getting the answers from the doctor that you're going to, then go see somebody else. Be persistent, right? If I wasn't persistent, I would not be here today, right? I barely, like when I got to the Seattle Cancer Care, and yeah, and one of the things they did say is that because of the tremendous health that I was in, like the way, being 42 years old, coming in super healthy was one of the things that also helped me beat this and to be able to battle that chemo. They gave me stuff that literally knocked me on my butt, right? And but I was able to, recover quicker, right? I was able to bounce back. I was able to beat it. And a lot of it, I'll say, was just being in great, phenomenal shape ahead of time. But yes, and I don't know too much about it, but blood work, I know that you can go get done. I know that you can go down to the local labs. I've done it before, and I just go get tested for stuff like if I want to get my testosterone tested, or if I want to get my my cholesterol levels checked. Those types of things, I know you can just go down to and get it done. There's different companies that are out there that will do that. However, when it comes to something such as cancer and those types of things, I think that I'll just reflect back to what I just said, is that you're not getting the answers, you're not getting the results, something's not right. Do whatever you need to do to get to a place like Seattle Cancer Care. I have come across so many people in the last 9 years that have come to me and said, I just found out that I have cancer, or something's not right. And I tell them, I said, I know people at Seattle Cancer Care. This is where you need to go. I'm going to figure out a way to get you up there. I have a little bit of pull up there because Fred Hutch, who's also, so you have Fred Hutch, UW, and Seattle Cancer Care are all together. And even Fred Hutch has been working on trying to figure out to do a story on me because of everything that's happened, that what I went through, and because of me being such a, I guess they want to say it, a success story, right? Because they deal so much with people that end up, losing their lives, that they want to be able to find somebody who has gone through what I went through and who's gone on to live a normal life or gone on to have a successful life. And they want my story as well. So it's something that I'm trying to work on with Fred Hutch right now. We're trying to figure out those logistics and figuring out what we can do to where I can start contributing more of my time, again, to be an inspiration and help people that because I'll say this, like when you're told that you have cancer or any other serious disease, you don't know what to do next. You don't know where to go. I didn't even know Seattle Cancer Care existed. I drove by it 1,000 times in my life and I never even knew it was there, and so people need answers. They need somebody who they can lean on to be able to help guide them or hold their hand or pull them into somewhere to get them going with it, because you feel completely lost. You're just basically you don't know what to do, and so being more of that advocate is something that's important to me.
Yeah, and I applaud you for that. And obviously what has worked in your power as well is just having that mental tenacity of just inviting positivity. Even though you were given like a 15% chance, people could go, okay, well, I'm done for. I just finished reading a book by Viktor Frankl, who was one of the prisoners of war in a concentration camp. And in there, he explains the power of purpose, because they could pretty much calculate to the hour when someone was going to die because they'd given up purpose. So his job, well, it wasn't his official job, but what he did was speak to people that had kind of given up and try to figure out what was their purpose, what was unique about them. One of them was a doctor and he'd finished 12 chapters of a book and only he could finish it. Another person had a daughter and a wife waiting for him in Austria. And then he was able to create the purpose within them, which allowed them to live through that concentration camp, through that quote unquote hell. So there's so much power within that, and how it can change the molecular structure of the trillions of cells in your body to, like you said, bolster immune system. Like, what is the biggest killer in society today? It's heart disease, and a lot of it is from mental stress that we put upon ourselves. So there's a lot that goes with that. So now you said you've come out and you have a new purpose of creating yourself as a ball of health with positivity as well. So then a little bit later you put on a lot of weight. And did you feel that this weight was purposely put on, or did you lose your way somewhere along the lines? where you'd actually blown up to like over 50 pounds heavier compared to what you are now.
Sure. So yeah, oftentimes, I think it's kind of it's a blessing and a curse sometimes with what I have. And I think you could relate to this with maybe, a lot of people this way, where I can add weight really fast and I can drop weight really fast. Right. It's just, I think there's that muscle memory thing as well, where it remembers, like, if you don't eat right, or you don't do things, you'll balloon back up. But then again, if you do the right things, your body will remember to go back to where it is, like where I'm at today. And so, going back to when I was battling cancer, that's when it was the 6 or 8 months before I found out I had cancer is when I started the company. My wife and I had started the company. And so, you have to put a lot of hard work in. There's a lot of hours, right? There's, we all understand that how fast, businesses can fail in the first year or the first 5 years. And so I often find myself from time to time getting so overwhelmed with work that I figure, okay, well, what can I replace? Like, okay, I could only do so many hours in a day of work. Well, I'm going to the gym. I get up at 4:30. I go to the gym at 5:30. So, well, I guess instead of going to the gym, I'm going to start coming into the office at 6:30, right? So then you end up replacing your gym time. And then next thing you know, once you eliminate that gym time or that time to kind of feel healthy, the next thing you know, you're making poor choices on what you put in your mouth, right? And when you make those poor choices, and the next thing you know, you don't really notice it until someone like shows a picture of you, and then you see that picture, like, oh God, I really look like that right now, right? And so yes, over the years, I tried to. It was 2 years after beating cancer, I started preparing to do the show again. So I was preparing, I was going through it. I ended up getting pneumonia so bad that it put me in the hospital, and my immune system just wasn't ready to go through that pounding of that, the rigorous, going through what I had to go through to prepare to train to go do a show again. So then I put it back on hold, and then I kept telling myself I was going to do it, and then work gets in the way, new kids get in the way, and you start to find excuses. And it was, and of course, everyone talks about COVID, right? COVID being that thing. And so it was probably, I want to say about 6 months ago, my 6-year-old says, "Dad, what happened to your abs? Where are you?" And it was that moment that I went, man, I know he's being, kids, but it hit me at that moment. And I realized, and I see a picture, I'm like, oh my God, I've gone back up to that 250 mark. I'm sitting around that 250 mark again. This is just not healthy. I can't do this. And then I get the fear of getting cancer, all that kind of stuff starts to set in. And I just realized, you know what, I'm the type of person that needs accountability in my life. I have an accountability coach for my business. I have other mentors. And I know that when I hire somebody to hold me accountable to my fitness regimen, I don't like to let people down. I don't like to let myself down. So that's when I saw you post something about the 6-month biohacking. And for me, the biohacking thing and what you explained about it really resonated with me, because I live in fear every single day that my cancer is coming back. Because again, I am told that I have an incurable cancer called follicular lymphoma. Okay, they say, Kris, we're going to have to monitor you for the rest of your life. You don't get the graduation cap at 5 years and we see you later. You're coming back every single year for the rest of your life, buddy. And we're gonna check on you. We're gonna make sure that if that follicular lymphoma rears its ugly head, we're gonna nip it in the butt right away. So I live in fear. I live in fear that I'm not gonna see my kids grow up. I live in fear that I won't see them graduate. I live in fear that I won't see them get married someday. So it was kind of that checkpoint watching that video you posted on Instagram, and I thought, man, I really need to focus on these biohacking tips, not just getting myself back into shape, which is the goal, but what can I do for the longevity of my life? Again, I'm going to be 52 years old here soon, and they say the average man's lifespan is like 72 or 77. I can't remember. It's like right around there. And I think about that. I'm probably 20 years or 25 years away from, the average lifespan. And what I've had and what I've put my body through, I'm sure is probably not done anything to increase it, right? Through the cancer and the chemo and all those kinds of things. So what do I need to do? What are the changes in my life that I need to make? And stop, like with work, I've got to figure out a way to like get the hours back in line, because again, if I don't have my health, I won't have my family, I won't have my job, right? So health has to come first in a sense, even though family is always first for me, but health really has to come first, because I won't be able to have that. And so the biohacking thing for me was really super important. And I am doing as much as I possibly can to increase the longevity of my life, to outlive 100. I love that. That's important to me. And it's been a blessing, how fast to be able to get with you and to get me back on a plan, to have the accountability sessions, and they get me back on track. And I feel absolutely amazing. It's for me, it's a lifesaver, because you said heart disease, that's one of the number one killers. And that's another thing that I always worry about, because that runs in my family a little bit. So if I'm not taking care of myself, not only am I worried about potentially cancer coming back, but I could be worried about something to do with heart disease. So
Yeah, I guess all's very important for you because, like you said, you're a father, you're a husband. You work long hours. You got a very successful business, which, from what I recall, you work anywhere between 80 and 100 hours.
That's what happened. So when I've been in this industry for 20 years, so I remember when '08 happened, and through when the big collapse, the big crash. It was a really rough time in everyone's world, especially in this industry. And when COVID happened, I remember turning to my wife and said, "Uh-oh, here we go," because we got shut down. Right, the governor shut us down as real estate agents, and for at least a week. But I looked at my wife. I said, "Here we go. It's '08 all over again. Yeah, we got to figure something out." But then real estate just took off, and it got so busy that you kind of get in this mindset, especially when you're business for self, that hey, when the business is good, you got to take advantage of it, because it's not always going to be good. So the problem is that I take on too many like clients, or I take on too much, or I get, the business is just growing, and I just figure, oh, you know what, I'll just work 100 hours. It's not a big deal. But what happens is when I do that, I eliminate the things in my life, that well, not spending enough time with my kids and being present, right? Present with my family, present with my health, right? Those types of things. And um, with my other coach, my coaching that I use for my business, they get on me and they're trying to help me to get back down to that 40, 50-hour work week. But yes, 80 to 100 hours, I was hitting that. And I'm more around the 60 to 80 hours right now. So I've been able to backtrack.
So it goes to show that you still can manage your time and be a family man, be a successful businessman, but food prep, make sure that you're getting your cardio, your workouts done. And on top of that, the thing that actually we didn't mention is that you signed up for the 6-month biohacking protocol. Correct. And, I'm looking at you now. Obviously, I get your pictures and everything, but you look like so healthy. Have you noticed a difference on this plan with the biohacking protocol in regards to how you look and how you feel, as opposed to just a traditional diet, as it were?
Yes, I do. You're right. You have the typical diet, the typical plan, which, I've always been a part of for a long time, like, in and out, in and out. But what I noticed different on this one is the focus on the other little things, like, for example, the ice bath, which I do cryotherapy instead, right? Focusing on red light therapy, focusing on as much as I can. And this is my biggest challenge still today, is the blue light, right? Eliminating blue light, because again, my business is so demanding that there are times where I am working late and, I'm in front of computers or my phone. But I'm really focused on that blue light, more stretching, taking walks after meals, right? I just notice a difference in the way I feel. I feel more alive. I feel I have way more energy. Um, and again, living this busy lifestyle that I have. And again, it starts at 4:30 in the morning and I'm on the go till probably 10 or 10:30 at night. And to be able to have the energy and to be able to get through my days is been such a big difference with being on this plan, right? All those little things that I'm doing really add up, and just I don't know. For me, I feel like a completely different person. I feel like I have the energy levels of when I was 20 years old. If that, you know, I really do, and a lot of it has to do with the biohacking. It's not just your meal prep. It's not just doing cardio. It's not just lifting weight. There are so many other things that are involved that make such a significant difference in the way I feel today.
Yeah, that's awesome. The devil's definitely in the details. Of course, yeah, you can get your macros and making sure that you are feeding yourself with, which you've been doing with like grass-fed, humane-raised, organic, trying to stay away from the antibiotics, the glyphosate, the heavy metal contaminants, etc. But making sure that you're doing the things like, you're getting out in the open air, you're getting sunshine, if not the sunshine, the red light therapy, so you're getting that vitamin D, which is a hormone, which is great for, your bolstering your immunity. And obviously, if you feel good, if your immune system feels stronger, your mitochondria is being fed, then you're going to perform and look better anyway as a side effect. Unfortunately, we're always chasing like it is the abs or the pecs, but we need to be working our lifeline muscles, our soul muscles, as it were, in order for the exterior to show itself in a healthy way, because this isn't just a 12-week program or a 6-month program. It is a lifestyle. And, you more than anybody have to have that accountability to make this a lifestyle, not just for yourself, but, your family as well. So, for people out there listening to this, let's say they've been getting ready for a bodybuilding show, or they're just dieting down just to look good and lose body fat. What do you say to those people that should possibly take a more of an inwards perspective of what health and fitness really is? Because, we spoke about the supplements, or you brought it up a little bit earlier.
Yeah.
That's the wild, wild west. The CBD world is like the wild, wild west, because we know that they're supposed to be healthy. However, there is a disconnect between health and performance, unfortunately, a lot in our worlds. So I was just wondering what your advice is to people, especially youngsters out there that are just looking at getting six-pack, as opposed to looking at what they're really putting in their body, as opposed to a macro, as opposed to a healthy macro.
I think for me, there is a lot more than just the six-pack. It's great to have that back now. It does feel good, right? I admit to that, but there's so much more. Like you said earlier in the podcast, that on the outside, I when I didn't know the cancer was there. On the outside, I looked completely healthy, but on the inside, something wasn't right. And it's so important, I think, today to really look at a lot more like mental health. I mean, that's one thing that a lot of people don't take in. I see a counselor every 3 weeks, just for the fact of having to deal with the fear of cancer coming back. It took my oncologist a long time, because I was like, I don't want to see a counselor. I don't need to see a counselor. It took probably 5 years before them to convince me to really focus on the mental health. The spirituality type of stuff, and the meditation, right, is something that is how important that is, to be able to take that time and focus on your deep breathing. I've been turned on to Wim Hof over the last 6 months, and trying to learn some of that breathing techniques, and as well as that guy's just crazy about being in the cold. So I know you like to take your ice baths, and that guy is just on another level. But doing all those little things, that, like you said, the vitamin D is so, again, that's something that the oncologists tell me that is so critical. They're making sure that I'm getting enough vitamin D, because of the studies that prove the link that a lack of vitamin D can lead to cancers and those types of things. So supplementation can only go so far. I do supplement like a lot of things, but it's the other things that you need to do. You do need to get out and get that sunlight. I remember you saying, make sure you get 10 minutes of sunlight every day. I'm like, well, I live in Seattle. It's a little hard. The Seattle area, it's a little challenging a lot of times, but by the little teeny red light therapy thing. I mean, that's another way to be able to, to not have an excuse of not being able to do it, to be able to find something that can do it. I know they're a little spendy, but they have different sizes and all that. But I think for younger generation today is that I know, social media is, I mean, when I was in my 20s, you and I both know we didn't have social media. We didn't have the presence that there is today. We looked at muscle building magazines is what we had. That was what we looked at, all kind of stuff. And so I still think there's the fakeness that's out there. Is, there's so much of it on social media. There's so much of it to where people still kind of like have to do this or do that, or there's so easy to get sucked into buying something that says it's going to do something for you, but there's no way in hell it's going to do what it says it's going to do. And it's probably just full of chemicals and fillers because they want to put cheap stuff in there and sell it and have their profit margins be super huge. And I think people just need to realize that the biohacking stuff is something that I think people just need to kind of go back into. Is in listening to when you disappeared for 10 days, and I can't remember the name of the place you went to, or
the Vipassana,
yes.
Vipassana silent retreat. I
remember when you were signing off, and I was so excited the 10 days later to hear your experience with that, because I too, deal with. In fact, you texted something, not texted, I'm sorry, you posted something that really resonated with me. And I think you probably, I'm sure you remember this. And it was some frustrations you had. You said, disconnecting from my phone, books, notebooks, speech, eye contact, intense exercise, that's what you're going to be doing. But and it came down to where, my addiction to work is good in some respect. I'm a high achiever, but it also dumps too much dopamine, putting me in constant stress, fear, symptomatic state, which can severely affect potential cortex. When I started reading that, I was like, oh my God, that's me. I'm totally related to what you wrote there. So when you took off and you came back, I was really interested to hear, what you did. And again, this, I don't know if it really answers the question you had asked me, but it's these things right here, like a lot of things that you talk about, and the things that are just really simple, that really don't cost money. It doesn't cost money to meditate, right? It doesn't cost money to go outside and get 10 minutes of sun. It doesn't cost money to go take 5 minutes to walk after eating a meal, right? There's a lot of little things that we can do for ourselves instead of, trying to find the quick fix or the easy button. I tell this to my sales team all the time. What we do today shows up 60 to 90 days down the road. So, we live in a world of sales here in my business. If we don't have sales coming, we're not doing sales, we don't have income coming in, we're not going to survive. So it's the little things that we do every single day of having conversations with clients and following up and doing all those little things. If you're not repetitive, doing it, the repetitive part of things is not sexy, right? What we have to do every single day, all the little things we have to do every single day is not sexy whatsoever. But it's all those little things that create that compounding effect. And so the same thing applies in what you do and what I do and what I have done, is that in society we want things so fast, so that if we try a new diet or if we start a new meal plan and 2 days later we look in the mirror and say, well, I don't look any different, so I guess it's not working, right? So again, it's that same mindset of that what you do today will show up 69 days down the road. And it just have to be consistent. You have to do it every single day. And if you could do that every single day, you're going to have success no matter what you do. Whether it's health, whether it's selling real estate, or you're making widgets for a living, I don't know, right? It's going to. So I know it's a long-winded answer on that, but that's such a, I could talk a lot more on that question. There's pretty, there's a lot going on in this world that.
Yeah. And well, you're right, though. It is the consistency is key because we are emotionally charged beings. If we've had a good day, great, everything's fine. If we've had a bad day or some sort of interruption within our life, then sometimes we can become emotionally charged. And then that 5 days a week turns into 3 days a week. And then there's no consistency whatsoever. And as we know, it can make it very, very difficult to get back into a routine where we are investing in our health and our future and the happiness for those that are reliant, on us. Yeah. So look, this has been a phenomenal interview. I really, really appreciate your time, Kris, because I know that you are a very busy individual. And in saying that, what if people want to reach out to you and maybe there's somebody out there that's dealing with some sort of struggle that may be similar to one of the elements that you've had to deal with? Can they reach out to you and ask you any questions in this regard?
Absolutely. I would love that. And if anyone does have any questions or anyone listening today that may know somebody that's dealing with cancer, or maybe know somebody or dealing with yourself, or anything that we've talked about today, yes, I can give an email address. I don't know what would be the best way for me to do it.
Whatever's best for you, whether it's your Instagram or email, you're the person that's going to be the recipient.
All right, well, let's do this. I'll just give my email. That would probably be the easiest. So it's I spell it the best way, Kris, Kris, at shookhomegroup.com. So it's SHOOK homegroup.com. And that'd be the best way to reach me, and I can respond. If for some reason it goes to the junk folder and you haven't heard from me, just try and resend it again, and I promise I'll reply.
Awesome. And we'll put the link to your email address in the show notes, and anything that we spoke about today as well, Kris, we're happy to put the links into the show notes as well. But I just really want to thank you for your inspiration that you're putting out there. It inspires me. Really, really does, to see people that go through these sort of challenges and just have such a positive mindset to continue. And obviously we're a crowd source of inspiration, and you're inspiring so many people at this time. So thank you very much, Kris.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you for your time today.
All right. Thank you. Okay, everybody. That is from myself, Kris, and Kris. And this is the Kris Gethin podcast. Until next time, we are out. Thank you ever so much for listening. My name is Kris Gethin, and I am out.